Our next performer is Ed, who is in the Help Your Hood Facebook group. By the way, if you're interested, Ed organized a thing where if you want to thank the numerous Czech healthcare workers who have been our frontline defenders for a year now and are probably exhausted and feeling a little bit in need of gratitude, he organized a thing where you can send postcards to them anonymously and for not very much money, for like $1 a postcard. You can send postcards to the healthcare workers in Prague, letting them know that they have your support and that you're thinking of them. And I think it's a really cool idea. So you should look at the Help Your Hood Facebook group if you want to learn more about that. But Ed's not going to talk to us about postcards or healthcare workers. He's going to tell us a story about music and stuff.
Hey, my name's Ed, and a few weeks ago I wrote a post on the internet about the brilliant world of the 1980s Czech cover version. People found this post hilarious, which makes sense because everything's hilarious about perms and shoulder pads and delusions of ABBA, especially when they're in Czech. But for me, this post was also something quite personal, because when I first came to Prague in 2005 as a tourist, I went to Bontonland, which was a music store. If you're young, that's like Spotify but on circular things. And I bought some CDs, and these mainly contained these god-awful / wonderful Czech cover versions. And I remember walking around Prague, listening to these, and at one point during that week, when I had Helena Vondročková on in the background, I realised something pretty big, namely that I was gay. Or more accurately, the suspicion that I was gay, which I'd had ever since I was about 12 years old, was not just a suspicion. I wasn't going to wake up and find that I was straight. I wasn't going to meet a woman so wonderful that this would all be seen as some awful phase we never talk about again, and it was time to deal with this. So, writing the post, which was so fun for everyone else, was quite a traumatic process for me, because it got me thinking about a lot of memories I'd pretty much tried to forget, which I tried to pretend didn't exist, and remembering these in the last few weeks, it's not been particularly fun most of the time. There was a meeting at work which I had to put myself on mute for because I was crying too much. I'm not a crier. But what I did realise on the day the post was made was that I wanted to talk about this, and that this might be the potential medium for that. Now, in case I get emotional again, I'm more prepared for that. If you're uncomfortable with men getting emotional, then yeah, you suck. We can talk about that later. And the thing I prepared is just a brief list of tips for somebody who has somebody in their life, someone they love, someone they care about, someone they're friends with, who they think might be gay and who they think might want to come out. Now, tip number 1, it's the first one for a reason. Everybody needs to do this in their own time. If you really want someone to come out before they're ready, you're really not helping them. I came out to my parents not until I was 25, and I frequently get told that this was really late. And it possibly was. But some of the people who tell me this was too late and I should have been out and proud at 12 are often the same ones who will see a story about an 85-year-old man coming out, like in the press, and be like, oh, how adorable! He can feel something other than his hip! Isn't that great? So if you're one of those people who thinks both of those things, then maybe it's good to have a quick rethink, yeah? You know, we can't do this until we're ready, and nobody deserves to be forced out before that time. Tip number 2, do have a think about the words that you use when you tell someone this. When someone tells you this, rather. When I was in my early 20s, mid 20s, I would get a lot of people saying, oh yeah, we all knew, we all guessed, we all talked about it all the time. That was the last thing I needed to hear. I'd spent pretty much my entire life feeling I wasn't enough of a man. I felt inferior. My self-confidence was somewhere that you can't actually see on video. And it just made me feel like I didn't fit in, when all I wanted to do was to finally fit in. Other non-favourites include, well, it's obvious, and, oh, just look at him. Actually happened at a table in the pub. What's with the third person? I'm next to you. Ah, people. Tip number 3. If you're paranoid that your friend is going to come out and suddenly fancy you, then 10 minutes later, oh, honey, you wish. Tip number 4. Don't be scared that your friend is only going to want to do stereotypically gay activities after this. You know, we're not a genre, we're not a trend. Some of us love football. Many of us drink beer. Many of us, myself included, walk into a clothes shop, think, oh, I can't be arsed with this. You know, take the first thing that looks like it might fit, and then walk back out again. You know, and many of us are dealing with the current hairdresser being closed situation as well as the rest of you. We're normal. Let us be normal with you. And finally, tip number 5, your friend might be in a bit of a state about this. When I came out to my parents, I practically electrocuted myself on the phone. It wasn't pretty, and it's a good sign of how some things are good when you only have to do them once. But it gets better. In the year before I came out, I went down to about 55 kilos, which if you're American is 120 pounds, and if you're homosexual is 1.24 Kylie Minogues, as I just checked this morning. I hated social situations. I felt that everybody would hate me, and that if people would find out who I actually was, they would all just disown me. And I underperformed in basically every metric possible. Now, I've got a good job, I've got great friends, I feel I can walk into a room with a bunch of people, or whatever the 2021 translation of that phrase is, and be myself. And that everyone's okay with that and seems to appreciate it. And nearly reaching for the tissues here, that is so much more than I could ever have imagined my life being at this stage. I know this might all sound a bit me, but there's a serious point here. There's 70 countries in the world where it's illegal for us to love who we love. In 10 of those countries, they can give us the death penalty. In many of the countries where it's legal, including neighbouring ones, there are people who want to make your life hell. We have more representation in the media. It's often not the representation that we want. I mean, how many superstar gay comedians have you heard of? And we carry all this with us. I still have mornings where I wake up and fear that all the people who are okay with me being me are going to stop at some point. That's not a reflection on those people. It's just something we carry with us. So, if someone you care about comes out and you want to keep them in your life, then please keep them in your life. You may feel you're just helping one person, but you're kind of helping all of us. I found this really scary. I've never talked in this sort of medium about any of this before. I'm probably going to go to bed tonight not quite believing I did it, and then if it appears on the internet, I'm going to believe it even less. But if you're listening, thank you. If you know me and this has been confirmation of something you'd pretty much guessed already, and you can say that these days, I'm fine with it, then I can't wait to tell so many bad jokes in front of you going forward. And you can do the same to me. Take care, people.